Very good morning, Patch people. Welcome to Manage Engines Patch Tuesday webinar for the month of December. Let's hope Santa gives us zero vulnerabilities. Thank you for tuning in with us for this month's Patch Tuesday update. As always, we have an information packed session with all the details you need to know about this month's Patch Tuesday. Before moving any further, I would like to confirm that I'm audible and my presentation is visible to you. Just drop in a thumbs up if it's all good. Thank you. I'm Dharanishri, product expert at Manage Engine, and I'll be your presenter today. Joining me is Manage Engine's Patch Pundits, who will be available via chat to answer any of your queries. Please don't wait with your questions for the end. Shoot it then and there. Our pundits will be happy to help you. Kindly note, this will be a 45-minute webinar. This session is being recorded and will be available on Manage Engine's Patch Tuesday site within 2 to 3 working days. So, what's on the agenda for today? First, we will start with the latest cybersecurity news to get a picture of the cybersecurity landscape. Moving on to Microsoft's Patch Tuesday breakdown to understand the lineup of patches released this season. Later, we will analyze the impacts and effects of missing these patches. Next up, we will be looking into the best practices you should adhere in order to safeguard your hybrid enterprise network. Last but not the least, a QA session to address all your queries. Let's begin the webinar with cybersecurity. The flag bearer of the internet world requires no introduction. With rising cyber attacks being a constant, admins have no choice but to be vigilant always. With that being said, let's have a look at what topped the headlines. First up, we have FIFA World Cup 2022 cyber attacks. The FIFA World Cup 2022 finals, which kicked off in Qatar, has given rise to a fresh wave of cyber attacks. Recent reports suggest that 7 attacks from different sources have been detected. About 174 malicious domains impersonating the official Qatar World Cup 2022 website have been reported. The attackers have used sophisticated methods to target users, with one such example being a pyramid scheme in the brand and logo name of Qatar 2022. Also, clicking on malicious links in fraudulent World Cup related promotional emails claiming to have tickets tricked users into opening up malicious attachments to gain access over their personal information. The Haya cards, FIFA entry permits, are the means of entry into the state of Qatar for international fans and provide its holders with several amenities, enhancing their experience in Qatar. The threat actors have sold counterfeit Haya cards to fans willing to pay any price to obtain one. Several Telegram channels were found selling Haya cards for $50 to $150. The threat actors also claim to require valid IDs such as passport to create Haya cards to steal personal identities from the fans. Amidst the FIFA wave, the value of fan tokens surged among fans to support their teams, and threat actors have taken advantage of this situation by disseminating false information and selling fake World Cup tokens on bogus websites. Threat actors even sold World Cup coins as limited edition, although the majority of the elite coin do not exist. Events on the scale of the World Cup are subjected to more disruptive attacks, focus more on destabilizing the event itself as opposed to impacting individual targets. Next up, Rackspace, a multi-cloud technology based company in Texas, suffered a ransomware attack the 2nd of December. Per reports published by the company, the attack is said to be restricted to the exchange servers. Rackspace has taken proactive steps to isolate the hosted exchange environment to detain the attack. Also, Rackspace had been working on transferring its exchange customers to the cloud based 365 after this incident. The ransomware attack damaged the hosted exchange environment, which led to the loss of email services of several users. The company acknowledged that an unknown number of hosted exchange customers were still without email services, more than 4 days after the initial outage. One possible attack vector, as pointed out by security researchers, that the attack might be due to the exploitation of Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities, tracked as CVE 2022-41040 and CVE 2022-41083, known as proxy not shell. The company has engaged a leading cyber defense firm to look into the attack. 2 lawsuits have been filed against Rackspace, citing the incident as data breach. The Rackspace has denied the claims, stating that no data of user has been compromised yet. This attack has impacted a significant revenue loss for hosted exchange business, which accounts for an annual income of 30 million. This attack only highlights how ransomware attacks can be deadly for organizations, both in terms of revenue and brand value. To combat ransomware attacks right in their initial stages, Manage Engine Endpoint Central now offers ransomware protection capabilities with the new anti-ransomware module. You can find more about it via the link shared in the chat. Let's move on to the next session. Windows End of Life OS versions. A few windows are closed this season. Let's dig a little deeper on this. Windows 10 version 20H2 for Home Pro and Pro for Workstation, and Windows 10 version 1909 for Enterprise and Education, whose activity and security support ends on the 10th of May 2022. It is recommended that you shift to the latest version of Windows, Windows version 11.22H2. Next up, we have the talk of the town, the 2 0-day patches this month. December's Patch Tuesday comes with updates for 2 0-day vulnerabilities. While one of these is being actively exploited, the other vulnerability is publicly disclosed. It is urged to implement these patches as soon as possible. The first 0-day vulnerability is CVE 2022-44698, Windows Smart Screen Security Feature Bypass Vulnerability. As per Microsoft, an attacker can craft a malicious file that would evade mark of the web defenses, resulting in a limited loss of integrity and availability of security features such as protected view in Microsoft Office, which rely on MOTW tagging. This actively exploited vulnerability can be targeted via web-based attacks, emails, and instant message attacks, and even through compromised websites. second zero-day vulnerability of this month is CVE 2022-44710. DirectX Graphics Kernel Elevation of Privilege Vulnerability. Regarding this publicly disclosed vulnerability, Microsoft states an attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could gain system privileges. Next up, we have critical vulnerabilities. December's Patch Tuesday comes with updates for 7 critical vulnerabilities, all the 7 impacting on the remote code execution. I'll pause for a minute for you to take screenshots or make notes. Dear participants, I would like to inform you that all this information is available in Manage Engines forum post for the month of December. Next up, we will look at the breakdown of Patch Tuesday. Microsoft has crucial lineup of patches this December. 134 patches, 47 articles, 49 vulnerabilities, and 6 impacts. Moving on to the affected applications and operating system. We have 2 apps, 2 from apps, 1 from Azure, 3 from developer tools, 1 from Microsoft.NET, 1 from Microsoft Dynamics, 31 from Microsoft Edge, 14 from Microsoft Office, 1 from Microsoft Visual Studio, 1 from open source software, and 29 from Windows. Next on patches based on impacts. 3 patches impacting on denial of service, 19 impacting on elevation of privilege, 3 impacting on information disclosure, 26 on remote code execution, 2 impacting on security feature bypass, and 2 impacting on spoofing. Let's look into the patches by severity. 13.5% of the patches released this season are critical, and 86.5% of the release patches are categorized as important. Followed by that, we will have a detailed breakdown on operating systems and applications affected. Microsoft Azure, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Visual Studio, Microsoft Windows, Developer Tools, Microsoft.NET, Microsoft Dynamics, Open Source Software, Microsoft Apps. We will dig a little deeper on these, starting with Microsoft Azure. Severity of the vulnerability is important, with impacts being on security feature bypass. CVE ID for Microsoft Azure vulnerability is CVE 2022-44699. Next up, Microsoft Office. Severity of the vulnerability is critical and important, with impacts being on remote code execution and spoofing. These are the CVE ID of Microsoft Office vulnerability, starting from CVE 2022-44690, CVE 2022-44693, CVE 2022-47213, and last, CVE 2022-26806. Dear participants, I'll pause for a minute for you to take screenshots or make notes. Moving on, Microsoft Visual Studio. The severity of the vulnerability is important, with impacts being on remote code execution. The CVE ID is CVE 41089. Microsoft Windows. The severities of the vulnerabilities are critical, important, and moderate, with impacts being on remote code execution, elevation of privilege, information disclosure, denial of service, security feature bypass, and defense in depth. Next up, these are the CVE IDs of Microsoft Windows patch. The critical vulnerabilities are CVE 2022-41076, CVE 2022-44676, CVE 2022-44670. People, I'll pause for a minute to take screenshots or make notes. Moving on, developer tools. Severity of the vulnerability is critical and important, with impacts being on remote code execution, elevation of privilege. CVE IDs for developer tools vulnerabilities are CVE 2022-41076, CVE 2022-41089, CVE 2022-44704. Microsoft.NET. Severity of the vulnerability is important, with impacts being on remote code execution. CVE ID CVE 2022-41089. Microsoft Dynamics. Severity of the vulnerability is critical, with impacts being on remote code execution. CVE ID is CVE 2022-41127. Open source software. Severity of the vulnerability is important, with impacts being on elevation of privilege. CVE ID is CVE 2022-44689. Microsoft apps. Severity is important, with impacts being on elevation of privilege and remote code execution. CVE IDs for open source software vulnerabilities are CVE 2022-24480, CVE 2022-44702. Followed by that, these are the list of third-party updates for Windows. I'll pause for a minute again for you to take screenshots or make notes. Are the third-party updates for Mac, starting from Safari 16.2, Thunderbird 102.6.0, Mozilla Firefox 108.0, Microsoft Work 2019 16.68, Microsoft Auto Update 4.54, Microsoft Excel 2019 16.68, Microsoft OneNote 2019 16.68, Microsoft Outlook 2019 16.68, Microsoft PowerPoint 2019 16.68. Moving on, non-security office updates. Update for Microsoft Project 2016 KB Y002193. Next, we are glad to inform you that a total of 923 patches released this month are supported by Endpoint Central and Patch Manager Plus, along with Vulnerability Manager Plus. The graph on the screen clearly depicts the steep rise in vulnerabilities each year. As we can see, a total of 23,767 vulnerabilities have been reported till December 2022. Such an alarming rise in vulnerabilities only iterates the dire need for patching to protect the endpoints in the network. Now let's take a look at the best practices for patching in a hybrid network. First of all, as a thumb rule, always test the patches you deploy in a test environment to mitigate any mishaps. For all your machines, prioritize the critical and security updates to maintain system health. Sync patching schedules with monthly Patch Tuesday updates. By syncing the Patch Tuesday schedules with monthly Patch Tuesday updates, you can ensure that the patches are tested, approved, and deployed as soon as they are released. This gives you a head start for achieving patch compliance in your networks. Prepare and set a broad deployment window for remote machines and non-business hours for office machines and servers. Provide users with option of postponing deployments and reboots. With that being said, we are done with the best practices you should adhere to protect your hybrid network. Now, let's look into the Patch Manager Plus console. We will be focusing mainly on addressing the following questions. One, question number one being, what are the salient features of Patch Manager Plus? How to create a test group? What exactly is done to deploy a patch? As most of you wonder. Dear people, kindly note if you are using Endpoint Central or Vulnerability Manager Plus, you can follow the same procedure as Patch Manager Plus. All these three products have the same patching module. Due to time constraints, I'll be giving a very brief demo. But if you are interested in a full-fledged demo on Patch Manager Plus, drop your email address in the chat box or in the feedback form at the end of the session. Our product experts will give you a personalized live demo on Patch Manager Plus. On to Patch Manager Plus console. As you can see, this is the Patch Manager Plus console. The homepage of Patch Manager Plus is filled with tons and tons of information about the endpoints in your network. I'll explain few in depth, starting with network patch status. In this graph, you can get information about the number of installed patches and the number of missing patches. This pie chart in this middle gives you information about the system health status. Based on the severity of missing patches, the systems are categorized as healthy, vulnerable, and highly vulnerable. Moving on, this pie chart gives you the details about the missing patches by severity. This list in the middle, you can get details about the missing patches by vulnerability. The top 20 vulnerabilities will be listed here. This pie chart here gives you data about the computers in your endpoint by operating system. This bar graph in the middle, Windows 10 computers by version. In the top, we have the latest cybersecurity news column. Here, you will get, by clicking on any of this, you will be redirected to Manage Engines, forum post or blog post, where you can find updates about Patch Tuesday and all the security news and updates happening across the world. Moving on to the next tab, patches. In this tab, you can see there are different types of patch categories, and all these are the available patches, and these are categorized into convenient forms, starting with missing patches, installed patches, applicable patches to decline patches. We can see in depth, we can see few of these patches in depth, starting with missing patches. In this view, you can see the list of all the patches that are missing in the endpoints of your network. For instance, consider this patch ID 32569. This particular patch is missing in one of the computer of your network. Clicking on this number, you can get the details about the computer in which the particular patch is missing. This particular patch is not yet approved and severity of the patch is moderate. Moving on to install patches. In this view, you can get the information about all the patches that are installed in your network endpoints. Next, applicable patches. In this view, you can see the list of all the patches that are applicable for your network endpoints. The patch list also includes the patches that are already installed in your network. Then, supported patches. For a minute, the server is taking some time to load. Kindly hold. Okay. Supported patches. In this view, you can see the list of all the patches that are being supported for your network endpoints. Last, decline patch. Using this feature, you can decline a patch, application, or a family. The patches that are being declined using this feature will not be displayed in the missing patch category, thereby will not affect the system health status. Moving on to the next tab, Systems. In this tab, in general, this tab gives information about system health policy, summary of system health policy, and compliance of your network. The scan system feature, using this, you can either scan a specific computer of your network, or else if you want, you can click on the scan all option. And using this option, you can scan all the endpoints present in your network. Next up, deployment tab. First, we have manual deployment. Using manual deployment, you can manually deploy a patch to your computers. Next, we have test and approve. We can see this in more detail. So these are the test group created previously. So always remember, testing a patch in pilot group of a system before deploying the patch to your network endpoint is very important in order to avoid any mishaps in the production environment. Also, the pilot group should have all the flavors and versions of computer that are present in your enterprise network. To test a patch, you have to create a test group first. In order to create a test group, click on to add group. First, you have to define the task. For platform, we have 3 different platforms: Windows, Mac, and Linux. Group name, you can either select a group name from the drop-down list, or else you can create a custom group. I would like to create a custom group. Click on Create Custom Groups. In this view, you can see the list of all the custom groups that are previously created. To create a new one, click Create New Group. Enter your preferred group name. If you want, you can add a description. Next, categories. We have 3 different categories here: static, static unique, and dynamic. I'll explain these categories in detail. Starting with static, you can define a static group when you have a definite set of computers. to be added to this group. Static unique. Computers added to this group are unique and cannot be a part of any other groups. Last, dynamic. For dynamic group, you can create a set of criteria. Computers that fall under the specified criteria will be automatically added to this group. Always ensure to select static or static unique while creating a test group. Why not a dynamic group? I'll show you why. As I already mentioned, for dynamic group, you have to define few criteria. I'll show you. For column, I'm choosing service pack, criteria equal, value, Windows 10 Gold. So what this means, all the Windows 7 Gold computers present in your network will be automatically added to this custom group. We don't want this because for patch testing to be accurate for your enterprise network, always make sure to have all the flavors and versions of computers that are present in your enterprise network. You should always ensure this. I'm selecting static for now. Yes. After selecting static, you can see two different lists here. The list in the left side shows all the computers that are present in your network. This is the fun part. You can easily drag and drop the computers you would like to add to the custom group. I'm randomly selecting few. Click select, save. The custom group December is successfully created. Moving on to the deployment tab, test and approve, add group, enter the name of the custom group which we created now. I'm entering December. Next, you have to define the deployment options. We have 4 updates here. Microsoft updates, third-party updates, antivirus updates, and driver updates. Let's starting with Microsoft updates. Select few security updates. I'm selecting few. Select few non-security updates. And I would like to select service packs, feature packs also. We have 3 options here. You can either patch the selected updates for all the applications, or else you can specify the application using this option. Or if you want to exclude few application and patch all the other applications, you have an option for this. You can select this and do that. I'm going with patch all applications. Next, third-party updates. The same procedure goes for third-party updates as well. Select few updates and severities. I'm selecting critical, low, and unrated. Next, antivirus updates and driver updates. Antivirus updates and driver updates are only available for Windows machine. Next, deployment criteria. Under deployment criteria, you can choose a number of days after the vendor release you prefer to deploy the patch. I'm selecting 8 days. Enabling this notification settings, you can send notifications to the specified email address. I'm not enabling this option now. If you want to automatically approve the tested patches after a specified number of days, you can specify the days here in this column. And if you want to, in order to automate this process, enable this checkbox. Select create. Created a test group. Moving on to automate patch deployment. This automate patch deployment feature. Wait a second. Moving on to automate patch deployment. Automatic patch deployment feature provides you the ability to deploy the missing patches of your computer automatically without any manual intervention. Note, automatic patch deployment is based on Patch Tuesday split. Automatic patch deployment task can be done in 4 steps. Step 1, select the application. Step 2, choose deployment policy. Step 3, define target. Step 4, configure notification. I'm starting with deployment policies. Click on deployment policy. In order to create a new deployment policy, select create policy. I would like to rename the task. Click on the pencil icon here. Type in a new name. On save. As you can see, we have 2 different types of week split here. Regular split and Patch Tuesday base split. If you select regular split, the weeks will be, you have to specify the weeks, number of days and deployment window. The weeks will be mentioned as first, second, third and fourth. In days, you can select the days according to your preference and you can give a provided deployment window here. For Patch Tuesday split, as you can see, the weeks will be will be with respect to the Patch Tuesday. So for instance, Patch Tuesday week, first week after Patch Tuesday week, second week after Patch Tuesday. You can select the days here and you can provide a deployment window. For now, I'm going with a regular split. I'm choosing few weeks randomly, days as well. Provide a deployment window. Always make sure to keep the deployment window as broader as possible. Next, download patches from server to agent. If you want, you can allow the agent to download the patches from the server during the deployment window or else any time when the agent contacts the server. Now I would like to select anytime agent contacts the server. Next, initiate deployment. You can either initiate the deployment process at the Windows startup or during the 60-minute refresh cycle or either of these whichever happens earlier. I'm choosing either of these whichever happens earlier. Select save and continue. Next, we have pre-deployment activities. Pre-deployment activities are few activities which your network might need before doing the actual deployment process. So we have 3 options here. Wake on LAN, pre-deployment reboot, and custom script. I'm selecting Wake on LAN. Click on Save and Continue. You can automatically wake computers before deployment. I'm enabling this option. Click on Save and Continue. Next, if you want, you can notify the user about the deployment process. You can enable this checkbox, and if you want, you can also customize this message according to your needs. You can give a notification timeout. If you want to allow the user to skip the deployment, you can check this box and you can specify the details here. And if you want the user to see the progress of the deployment process, you can select this box. Click Save and Continue in order to continue. Next, we have post-deployment activities. As the name suggests, post-deployment activities are the activities that needs to be done after the deployment, after the actual deployment process. We have 2 different options here, post-reboot shutdown, custom script. I'm selecting post-reboot shutdown. Select Save and Continue. Reboot type. You have 2 different reboot types here, force reboot, delay reboot, reboot immediately after deployment, or you can specify the reboot time by clicking on this option. I'm selecting force reboot and reboot immediately after deployment. You can also give a reboot message as well. You can customize this message and you can provide a notification timeout here according to your requirements. If you want the user To skip the reboot, you can enable this option. And if you want to exclude the server machines from the reboot process, you can enable this checkbox. Select Save and Continue. As you can see, this is the summary of the patch deployment task which you have created now. If you would like to go, if you want, you can go through this to confirm all the steps once again. Moving on, save and continue. The December policy is created. Now you have to align, now you have to give the policy a target. So back to the automate patch deployment window, select automate task. You have three different options here: Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'm choosing Windows. Test, you have to select application. Microsoft updates, select few security updates. I'm choosing few non-security updates, leaving important and moderate. Select service packs, and I would like to select rollups also. Third-party updates, the same follows for third-party updates as well. Select few severities. I'm selecting critical, moderate, and low. Antivirus updates and driver updates. As I already mentioned, antivirus updates and driver updates are only available for Windows machine. You can choose the deployment here, deployment days here. Select next. If you want, you can allow the user to suspend the task. You need to specify the date and time. I'm leaving this part for now. Select next. Define the target. You can click the drop down list and select the targets from the list. I'm selecting few targets. Select next. Configure notifications. You can configure the mail notifications using this view. I'm leaving this part for now. Select save. The automatic patch deployment task is successfully created. Dear, dear participant, this brings us to the end of the demo. As I already mentioned, this was a very quick demo, but our Patch Manager Plus has more to offer. Drop in your email address in the chat box or in the feedback form to get a live demonstration of the product. These are the patch management solution that Manage Engine offers for seamless patching. Starting with Endpoint Central, our flagship product, unified endpoint management and security solution. We also have an MSP version of this product. Patch Connect Plus integrates with Microsoft SCCM and Intune to fully automate the distribution of third-party updates across your enterprise network, along with other useful tools. Patch Manager Plus, our standalone patching solution. Vulnerability Manager Plus is a multi-OS vulnerability management and compliance solution that offers built-in remediation. It is an end-to-end vulnerability management tool delivering comprehensive coverage, continual visibility, rigorous assessment, and integral remediation of threats and vulnerabilities from a single console. Dear people, with that comes to the end of the session. I would like to grab this opportunity to thank you all for being a lovely audience. It is highly appreciated if you could rate the webinar and provide your valuable feedback. On closing, you will find the rating window wherein you can rate the session from 1 to 5, with 5 being the best. Thank you.